23rd regular meeting of the Lake Charles Harbor and Terminal District. If everyone would please stand. Dear Lord, we ask your blessing on the support, the people that depend upon it, on this board, and in our decisions, that they are for the betterment of those we serve. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Dixon will lead us in the pledge.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
People that love their country.
That's it. Interloop.
That's it. People love their country.
The public comment procedure, the board encourages public comments and questions regarding all agenda items. Persons wishing to do so should complete a speaker's card, which is at the entrance to the boardroom. When speaking or asking a question on an agenda item, one should, in addition to completing the card, come to the microphone, be recognized, provide your name, address, and phone number. Comments by individuals will be limited to 3 minutes. First item is the approval of the April 25th regular meeting minutes.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Ms. McClary moves, Mr. Guidry second. Any discussion, corrections? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carried. Submission 2022-026, Mr. Self.
The staff requests the Board of Commissioners to authorize the Executive Director to accept the lowest responsive bid from Alfred Palma LLC for the Bulk Terminal 1 repairs and amend the 2022 capital budget. As a result of Hurricane Laura, as you guys are familiar, BT1 sustained a significant amount of damage. This one relates to dockside conveyors at BT1, especially 2 towers on the north and south end of the dock. Alfred Palma was the low bid at $322,000 plus a $60,000 contingency for a total of $382,000. We're also requesting approval to amend the capital budget for a total of $435,000 due to the fact that we'd incurred some inspection and engineering fees ahead of that time.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve submission 2022-026.
I second.
Have a motion by Mr. Dixon, seconded by Mr. Darbone. Any discussion, questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carried. Submission 2022-027, Mr. Self.
Magnolia LNG seeks to extend the current agreement on rent payments. Similar to last year, they have requested the ability to pay their rent monthly as opposed to one lump sum. And we've done this before, and we're recommending, requesting authorization.
Have a motion.
Mr. President, I'll go ahead and move the submission 027 for discussion.
Motion by Mr. Lorenzi,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Darbone. Any discussion?
Ms. Self, is there a downside to doing this monthly as opposed to the annual?
Nothing other than the obvious. We don't get the lump sum payment ahead of time. We just get it monthly. But we have many tenants that bill monthly, that pay monthly as opposed to one lump sum.
I'm sorry.
We have other tenants that do pay monthly.
You pay monthly?
Similar to this. We have some that pay lump sum at the beginning of the year. But yeah, there's not a significant downside, no.
And they have been paying timely on a monthly basis?
They have.
I guess my only other question is, does it create an issue as far as other tenants are concerned, having a right to demand similar treatment?
No, other tenants are welcome to request approval to do the same. And again, some already do pay monthly.
Any other questions? No other questions. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carried. Submission 2022-028, Mr. Self.
The South Louisiana Rail Facility seeks an agreement on property at the turning basin to load barges and other vessels. The port was approached by the South Louisiana Rail Facility about leasing space to load barges at the industrial canal, specifically the Gulf Island site. This submission will allow port staff to negotiate those agreements for the movement of the cargo.
And just to be clear, if you all remember, a few months ago, you guys authorized us to have the lease agreements on the South Turning Basin assigned back to the port. If you remember, those leases were leased to Lake Charles LNG, and then to Shell, and then to the subtenants DII and Gulf Island. We have been in the process of having those leases assigned back to the ports. We've got all the documents drafted, but I am still waiting on the signed documents to come back from Energy Transfer, which is Trunkline or Lake Charles LNG. No problem. They're supposedly in the mail, but once we get those back, we just wanted to go ahead and get this approved tonight so that, so that we don't miss any
It's understood
opportunities.
this is contingent on.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, do I
Mr.
have a
President, I'll
motion?
move adoption of submission 2022-028, authorizing the director to enter into an agreement with South Louisiana Rail Facility for loading of vessels at the turning basin.
I'll second that.
Mr. Lorenzi moved, Mr. Darbone second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carried. Briefing notes. I
Yeah,
see
Cameron is
Cameron's
out
not
sick,
here.
so I'm going to take care of the briefing note for him. Operating revenues for the month of April were $3.1 million, resulting in about a $500,000 favorable actual variance. The primary contributing factor relates to the fact that we handled more rutile tonnage than we anticipated. In addition to the fact we've had a continued inflow of lumber at city docks, which has been a blessing. And then, as we've talked about in previous months, the fact that we've had the GASB 87 implementation has increased rental revenues. Operating expenses prior to depreciation for the month of April were $2.2 million, resulting in about a $100,000 favorable variance. Again, that's due primarily to a dividend associated with Louisiana Workers' Compensation Corporation. Depreciation expense was essentially as budgeted. There was a nominal favorable budget to actual variance. Non-operating revenues and expenses were also favorable nominally. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation were about right at $1 million. Moving on to the balance sheet, unrestricted cash and investments decreased $3 million. There's a lot of things that are going into play on that. You know, we pay the insurance premiums, partially offset by the fact that we get the ad valorem tax revenues at the beginning of the year. Restricted cash and investments decreased about $200,000. That's due primarily to the principal and interest payment on our outstanding bond issue. Trade accounts receivable increased to $180.3 million, and that's due to GASB 87. Fixed assets increased $2.2 million as of April 30th compared to December 31st, and that's due primarily to multiple hurricane-related projects. Construction in progress increased $10.4 million, and it's due primarily to the rehab of the rehab of the berth 2 and 3 project, purchase of the new Petcoke unloader, the trench shed 16 and 17, and the traveling import hopper at BT1. Current liabilities decreased right at $1 million due primarily to the payment of the principal and interest payment, due primarily to the berth. Actually, that's primarily contracts payable. The long-term debt decreased $1.2 million due primarily to the payment on the debt. And that pretty much covers it.
Any questions? FEMA GOSEP briefing.
Sure. Just give you a real quick recap. Project totals, and I'm going to focus primarily on Hurricane Laura since that's the primary bulk of money. The project totals are adjusted right now to right at $105 million. Insurance is still $46 million. The current to be obligated is $52.9 million. The obligated is $12.1, and we've received 5.2 of that, almost 5.3. The change from April, from last month, the project totals decreased $2.6 million. The current to be obligated, the 90% decreased $2.4 million, and we've received an additional $403,000. The reason we've had those decreases is due primarily to the Transit Shed 16 project, and we expect those amounts to increase. They're going to fluctuate over time, but as we get to the completion of some of these projects and get final amounts, those amounts are going to fluctuate.
I have a question. So by looking at this, can we assume that there was no insurance coverage for any damages from Delta or the winter storm?
That's correct. I mean, if you look at Delta, it's only $367,000 in total.
We'll take anything we can get. Okay.
Any other questions? Administration, finance.
I don't have anything to add to Cameron's report.
Okay. Navigation, Channing.
Yes, sir. Representative Letlow from Louisiana's 5th District was recently appointed to the House Appropriations Committee, which is a pretty big deal for Louisiana. We haven't had anyone sitting on that committee for a number of years. We have a conference call with her staff tomorrow to introduce the port and the channel to them and let them know about our funding needs for both. So this is part of the hurricane recovery, begging for bucks process that we're going through right now. In addition, the WebEx with General Holland is still scheduled for June 8th. Tomorrow's meeting is a Zoom meeting, and Picard Group is targeting the week of July 18th to try and have either in-person or virtual meetings in D.C. to talk about channel funding. That's all I have, sir, unless there's some questions.
I have a question. As I recall, and I don't remember what the time frame was, but Congresswoman Letlow has taken a tour of our port. Was that post-hurricane? Did she not come to visit us? Yeah.
She did.
So she has some familiarity with our needs. Do you recall if that was before the hurricane or? It was definitely after the hurricane.
Last year. That's been in the last 12 months.
Yeah, but she hasn't
just
been.
elected in 21.
Yeah.
And she was appointed to the House Appropriations Committee last week. So I
Yeah, I
think
read that she was.
her tour here was right after she won the special election.
Well, that's good. She has some familiarity with our needs. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you, Channing. Operations, Todd.
Yes, sir. Recently at City Docks, we've handled 2 hydrate vessels and 4 barges for a total of about 42,000 tons. We've done 3 cargo transfers, about 22,000 tons, and 1 structural steel shipment, about 9,000 cubic meters, and a liquids ship, it's about 7,000 tons. Coming up, we've got another hydrate barge and two more lumber vessels, about 33,000 cubic meters. At BT1, we've loaded a calcine barge, raw coke barge, 2 rutile barges, another hydrate barge, and a green coke ship for Phillips 66. We're currently loading a raw coke ship for Phillips. We've got 3 rutile ships on the schedule, another calcine ship and calcine barge, and we're currently discharging a barite vessel, and then we have a green coke vessel for about 34,000 tons. Port Aggregates has also handled a limestone shipment. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It says that the director had participated in a call with Sulphur wastewater plant to discuss options for providing their lab with better water.
Yes, sir.
Okay. They can get their water from the city of Westlake. It's much better.
Okay.
So you may want to pass that on.
Yes, sir.
Todd, I'm interested in it says you participated in a call with Stein Lumber regarding apparently Stein importing lumber
Not them importing lumber. We have, obviously,
or purchasing lumber imported at the port.
yes, sir. Yeah, we've got, large amounts of lumber here that various shippers have sent, and been discharged at the port. And a lot of it goes to Home Depot and Lowe's, and obviously a lot of different lumber
I see what
stores.
you're
And
saying.
so we just got with Stein and let them know that the lumber's here, and
Okay.
that if they wanted to get in contact with suppliers, I gave them all the numbers and contacts.
Any other questions? Thank you, Todd. Cargo and trade, Terrence.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're currently preparing for 2 site visits. One company is coming in this week to look at some property to lease for acreage to store materials and equipment for a project they're bidding on here in Southwest Louisiana. The other company is a logistics and maritime company looking for a location to handle offshore wind. And they currently have an agreement on the East Coast to do that. We also have 2 articles coming out that we're working on, one with inbound logistics. It's on capital investments and upgrades to port facilities. And we have one that's complete that should be out this month in the Journal of Commerce, just on activities through 2021 through 22.
Any questions?
Terrence, would you share those with the board when they come out, if you can get them there ahead of time, please?
Okay. Thank you, Terrence. Engineering, maintenance, Nick.
Yes, sir. I wanted to expand a little bit on the FEMA and GOSEP as well. I've got an update from Glenn, and there were some pretty big wins for him and his team last week. One big one is the 428, which is our alternate projects. We had 10 alternate projects that finally received their extension. Prior to that, they were not able to be obligated, so that's about $4.2 million in projects that can now be obligated. One in particular is Transit Shed 7. This is one where we were seeking the 50% rule, where it costs more to repair than to replace. That project was finally successful. That's the one, it actually received some press last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, because it has to go all the way up to DC for approval. So that one was finally approved, and we will be reimbursed for the building cost of that one. Also, Ricky mentioned Transit Shed 16. That was also another win for the port. The FEMA will now reimburse us for a full roof replacement. They were trying to make us just patch the holes, essentially. And it looks like it is. Also, Winter Storm Uri, we mentioned that one because it had no insurance tied to it, but it was finally, everything was approved through FEMA on that one. That's about $205,000 that we will be receiving, and we can actually close that one out now, that storm. For engineering projects, we have, I wanted to give you an update on our asbestos at Transit Shed 17. It is moving along. The walls are nearing completion. We're hoping to start bringing down the roof. We're going to start after Memorial Day, and that's when we expect the biggest challenge for removing asbestos on that facility. We were able to submit our Port Infrastructure Development Grant for berths 4, 5, and 6. The final request was $25 million is what we're requesting for that project to help in the reconstruction of it. We're also, Glenn and his team are preparing to submit that one to FEMA. We're hoping to get at least the building costs from FEMA on that one as well. Transit Shed 17, I mentioned it was approved, so the design is beginning on that one with Meyer & Associates. And berth 2 and 3 construction is progressing nicely. We have run into a few more underground obstructions, but nothing too severe at this point. We've kind of got a streamlined process where we're not having too much downtime as we run into obstructions. Continue on. And I'll be glad to answer any other questions.
Any questions?
I guess, Nick, my question is, I mean, we're getting ready to go into hurricane season again, just kind of like what shape are these various projects in as far as if
Yes,
all
sir.
hell breaks loose again?
That's always the fear right now, since we're in this kind of semi-constructed state. So luckily, all the buildings that we were hoping to save, all those repairs have been completed. The new mobile harbor crane has its hurricane tie downs. We have a procedure now for taking our temporary loading facilities, our telestacker off the dock and get it secured. Basically, the projects that are under construction, we'll just have to make best as we can to tie those down and prepare for the winds. Transit Shed 7, I could see, is our big red flag there, but it's in the process of being demolished, so hopefully it'll be down before hurricanes hit.
Yeah, and
Sounded good, actually.
to Mr. Lorenzi's point, last week, I guess it was, Nick and I, well, Nick was gracious enough to take me on a tour of all these projects at City Docks, and, you know, we keep approving these things, and I had a feeling where they were, but I certainly encouraged the board to take some time to see the progress that's being made. I know it's been 2 years, but considering all of the bureaucratic hurdles that we've had to jump through, I think our vendors are serving, our contractors are serving us well in trying to prepare for hurricane season and beyond. So thank you for that, Nick, and I know you'll be more than happy to do that with others.
Absolutely, and everyone's welcome.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you, Nick. Any updates on lobbyist reports, John? Rick?
No.
Okay. Any other matters that need to come before the board? No other matters. I'll entertain a motion for executive session.
I make a motion that we go into executive session. Second it.
Mr. Darbone moves. Mr. Guidry, second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. We'll be going into executive session.